less controversial. We'll talk about let's Heroes of the Storm Tech Alpha.
I'm
They-
sorry, you just said happier
Chris,
and
can
less
I-
controversial.
Oh,
Can
okay, Paul.
I,
You want
can I
to
not just come back on a few of the points
Okay, sure,
raised, or am
sure.
I just going to be silenced like Thorin was?
Okay, sure. Oh, wow.
Well, wait,
Oh,
hold on.
oh,
Wait.
When
Let's
was-
be a little.
Wow,
Hold on, Can
okay,
I? Wait.
okay.
How about let's be like
I
a little
was
bit
joking.
transparent. Let's be a little bit transparent. We can come back to it later, but I think one of us has to leave for something else.
Yeah,
so
one of
that's
us.
why we're
Yeah,
trying to move
TB
on.
has to leave
Yeah.
in a few minutes.
So we
I'm
can
not
come back.
We can come back to the
Ben.
Thor.
Let me just be very quick then,
Yeah.
and I will be very quick. It's not so much the perception; it's more about, and it's not really about ESL's image either. It's literally that we don't endorse that kind of behaviour. Whether it's right or it's wrong, that's who we are and what we stand for. So, it's not about so much the perception as what we would be seen to endorse.
Yeah.
As for the threats, absolutely, I don't condone any of them, and I'm with Richard on it 100%. On the people that did those things should feel very bad, and that's not how you show the best side of what he was effectively saying was a bad side. But at the same time, I think it's a very regrettable course of action, so close, as Richard said, to proximity of the event. But I absolutely, honestly wish him all the best, and I don't want to see him leaving the scene either. And this goes directly against what you were saying about Toby 1 earlier, which is Thorin's the best there is. I basically got rid of the best guy I could have in that position, and I had to beg other players. We had to beg other players to come in and stand in, and they did a fantastic job. I'm really thankful to those players, but would it have been better him in that position? Absolutely.
Yeah, can I just add one point on that discussion? It's
Okay.
yeah, the whole situation obviously sucks, but I think what hasn't been mentioned is this defense that a lot of people threw up. It's like, well, what did you expect? It's unfiltered, as if that's somehow an excuse. But he decided to turn up on Unfiltered and then say that within proximity of that event. And I think Richard is absolutely right. It would have blown over quite nice and quick if it hadn't been right fucking next to the event. He did just go and insult the country that he was about to go and work in. And that's kind of a risk you take. If you are linked to an organization in some way, if you have sponsors or anything like that, then you have to bear that in mind when you go on any show like this and when you say anything. And if you don't believe that you can either sort of keep back what you feel will end up being too offensive or piss off your sponsors or employers, then just don't go on that show. You are in full control. It's not like someone baited that out of you in an interview that they ambushed you. That was not a gotcha moment. That was something that was freely said, and you take the consequences for that. It's as simple as that.
Okay. Well, again, given the timing, and I know I wanted to, today I wanted to definitely talk to TB and get his opinions with everybody else on Heroes of the Storm. We can come back to that, whether it's in Q&A or whatever, if we need to. So it's not me just filtering this thing, guys. But let's talk a little bit about Heroes of the Storm. The Alpha Tech came out. I think a lot of us had the privilege of being part of that, or the Tech Alpha, sorry. And we got a
thanks
chance
for
to play.
coming out on a Thursday while I'm at
Right,
this.
that was crazy.
Yeah.
I got the bloody email, and I'm like,
know.
yeah, no.
Exactly, right?
ReDeYe's wish of being a competitive HOTS gamer forever ambushed.
right. So a lot of people.
Destiny's attempt to be a pro caster at it as well. So.
Well, okay, so this is the first time a lot of people have gotten a chance to play it that didn't go to BlizzCon or haven't had maybe just the on-site type of behind-the-scenes type of preview of it. So I guess let's get everybody's opinion on it. And Steven, I know you've been playing a lot of it actually the last several days, ever since it came out.
I
actually.
ran into that bastard a few times.
Exactly. Well, let's start with you, Steven, actually, and then we'll follow up with TB.
There's so much to talk about.
Okay, let's talk about it from the standpoint. Okay, let's talk about it from the standpoint. Is it different enough from League of Legends and Dota for you to Dota 2?
Undoubtedly, definitely.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Okay. Is there esports potential to this?
Okay, so I don't know how every other competitive gamer approaches a game they play. Okay, so when I play a game like StarCraft or League of Legends, the enjoyment for me doesn't actually come out of playing the game itself. Like I don't like go to sleep and think in the morning like I really want to play StarCraft or League. Like there's so much fun. The enjoyment for me comes out of the improvements that I make in the game, right? That's why I measure the fun that I have. So for me, what's fun in StarCraft 2 is my creep spread is getting really good in every single game I play, or I don't die to that Hellion run by anymore, or like I can always beat these guys doing this spell. Like that's where my fun comes out of. Making improvements from game to game. The biggest problem, the buzzkill that I've been kind of having with Heroes of the Storm, Heroes of the Storm, is that they've completely gone, I don't know if I want to say overboard, but they've gone overboard in removing all individuality from the game.
Yeah, I
like
agree with that.
almost like socialism 1984-esque. Everybody has to be the exact same. Like anybody that gets in on a kill gets a takedown. Anybody that's involved, like everybody in my stream yesterday was like, "Oh my God, you got a pentakill," and I was like, "No, it just tells everybody we all got pentakills because we were all fighting."
I was in the area.
Yeah.
I was in the area.
The lack of mechanics, like, or well, I say like the lack of like CS, like you can't CS, you don't see your individual kills. I don't know, like it's impossible for me. Like I've played. I don't even know how many games I've played. A few dozen, maybe 50, maybe 100. I don't think I've played 100 games yet. Or maybe I have, I don't know. But, like, I couldn't tell you now if I'm actually better at the game now than I was at the very start when it first came out. Because there's, like, no real way to measure yourself from one way to another.
You're definitely better.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe. I don't know. But, like, that's just, like, a minor complaint. Whereas, like, in StarCraft or League, like, in League, I can clearly see if I'm getting better. Like, holy fuck, like, my CS every game, like, I'm like, 200 CS at, like, the 20-minute mark. Like, every game now. Like, my mechanics are so good. Or, like, every time I lane against like fucking Tarek Draven, like I'm always like perfectly positioned such that when I get stunned I never take down. Like I'm doing so good. Whereas in like this game, it's everything is team oriented. I have no fucking idea how to tell if like I'm always ahead in my lane or always behind, because even levels are shared amongst the damage, which is a mechanic that I'm actually not fond of at all. So I mean like that from somebody that plays games really competitively, for me personally, that really hurts it for me.
Okay.
But that's not to say the entire game is bad, because the talent system is really interesting. I think there's a lot of potential interest that could be created out of the game, especially with the varied maps and the different map objectives. So.
Okay, TV, what do you think?
I absolutely agree with what Steven's saying. But what I would say is that I noticed just a couple of days ago, I was getting quite frustrated with the game because solo queue in that game is just impossible. There's basically no MMR system as of yet because it's still an alpha. So you could get put in with people that are straight out of training, or you can get put in with godlike players, or one way or the other, and it could really go one way. That game actually, it's weird because you'd think that a game like that would be less snowbally than a game like Dota and League. It's actually the exact opposite. It's far more fucking snowbally.
Right, it is.
But if you have two equally matched teams, there are lots of opportunities to turn that around because it's objective focused. But what I noticed a couple of nights ago, we were playing with a couple of streamers. I was playing with Harfu and a couple of others, but we also had a Diamond 1 League player with us, so who kind of knows what he's doing. And he was sort of heading up the team. And what I noticed is he had really, really great map awareness, and he knew basically when to do certain things. And he was playing the entire game almost like StarCraft, in the sense that it was all about timings. And he was saying, right, well, we're going to get our ultimates, we're going to get our ultis before they do, and then we can capitalize on that by taking this camp, and pushing this gate. And then he was also doing things like, just ignore the objective entirely. They're all down there. Let's all go hit this. And it became very much this team-focused game that was focused on objectives almost exclusively. Like, kills don't really matter that much. The only reason to get a kill in that game is to help you get an objective, or get a camp. Yeah, because the experience you get, you're better off just making sure all three lanes have somebody in them. You actually get less by going through and ganking people than you would by having all three in a lane. It's just how the experience works. And we had a bunch of really good games that played out really well. We didn't win all of them, but a lot of them were really, really close. And it was all because of the way that the game flowed. And I think that once you're able to start thinking at that slightly higher level, it appears casual, and it's definitely got a shallower learning curve than pretty much any other Dota-style game out there. But it does have this really interesting team and objective-focused dynamic that I am kind of digging. It's quite rewarding if you've got 5 people playing with you.
ReDeYe, Richard, any thoughts? Have you guys gotten a chance to play it much, or?
Well, I guess Paul hasn't, but by
Yeah,
the
Paul probably
despondent
just gotten that.
reaction.
He's probably just gotten that.
Thanks for that.
Rub it
That's
in his
very
face.
kind.
I haven't even. I've got a key.
I got a key. There are no keys. All right, first off, there's no keys.
Yeah.
So
No,
what are you
no
talking
keys.
about?
I'm just sorry. I've got an email. I've got an
Okay,
email
there you
with
go.
the information in, but I
There you
haven't
go.
even opened it yet to discern whether it's a key or not.
Right.
So, all right. So, I did talk to a Blizzard employee at IEM by pure accident. I saw this guy. He was like long hair and down to his waist, and he had like
Chris
a sort of
Siggety?
hippie. Yeah.
Chris Siggety? Oh my
yeah.
God.
Guy
Oh my
from
God.
Blizzard.
Yeah.
Only one of the
Oh my
biggest,
God.
like, most important people there.
Okay, right, yeah. So I go up to him and go, "Dude, you're the coolest motherfucker here, right?" My exact words to him. And I've got about 8 beers. This is at the Twitch
He's
after
like,
party.
yeah, man.
And I'm like, and I've got like 8 beers, right? So I give him a
Could
beer,
you
and
be
I'm
more
like,
blacklisted than you currently are, Richard?
no. Get this though, right? So he's like, "Oh, thanks, man." I was like, yeah. You know, I noticed your hair and your accent, you hippie motherfucker. Like, kept on going. And he said, "Oh, you know, my name's Chris, and I work for Blizzard." And I'm like, "Oh, right, okay, cool." So now I've got to style it out, right? Like, so we're just talking, and he asked me my opinion about like what I thought about games, and I was like, "Oh, you know, I think Hearthstone's kind of, you know." No. And then he started telling me why it was good. And then he started telling me about the plans for, you know, Heroes of the Storm. And it was amazing. Like, the plans they've got laid out for it actually even being a competitive game in esport really surprised me. Because I was like, this isn't going to be an esport, dude. You know that, right? And he was like,
Ouch.
yeah, well, no, I told him, what the fuck? Like, I'm going to lie to him. I also said, and next time Kalaris came over, and I said, and next time you're doing your finals, hire him as a caster. Don't leave him off the list. I'd had a few beers, like, so I'm just going to tell Blizzard how to do their job. But anyway, yeah, so we were talking about that, and he said, like, you know, he's absolutely confident it can make a dent in the esports scene, and they will be focused on it. And he linked that to talking about Hearthstone by saying it teaches you the sort of building blocks of competitive gaming. But, you know, when you play that game, you take it at face value. It's a card game. Mm-hmm. Then you start learning strategies, and then you start learning combos. And then, you know, and he says it's going to be very much the same for Heroes of the Storm. That's what they want to do. They want it to be almost like an esports. And he was saying as well they had great admiration for what they've done with League of Legends and Riot as a company. So a very interesting conversation from what I can remember of it. So I think the development of the game is going to be interesting and exciting. I'm looking forward to see what it can do.
Paul, any comments before I chime in?
No,
there?
I mean, I've played like 3 games, but that's it. Just haven't had a chance to do it. I've, you know, kind of moved into a new house on Monday after getting back from Poland, and it was basically a giant storage unit here, so I had to, you know, put beds together and stuff, and just continues tomorrow. But I'm kind of trying to get into it. I mean, I'm stupidly excited for Heroes of Storm. Obviously saw it on BlizzCon last year, and pretty much waiting for this game for this year, because I think it'll be, or I thought it would be, the kind of game that I would enjoy most. I mean, I enjoy MOBAs full stop. Wasn't lucky enough to get into either League or Dota really early on, so therefore grew with it. And it's very difficult to kind of jump into those games late on, for a caster anyway. But, you know, Heroes is definitely something I want to commentate on. And, yeah, it's really important to me to get the alpha tech. So I haven't had a massive chance just yet because of all the moves and stuff. And obviously we're concentrating on WCS next week, so it's going to be tough. But I played a few games. I think the only thing that really strikes me is the other guys are all right with all of the differences, but the length of the game, at least the 3 I played, were really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that.
Short.
I like that from an esports point. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. Let's not go down the League of Legends route again of arguing. But the bottom line is most games are 30 to 40 minutes, and I don't know about you, but my attention span isn't that long. So watching for that long is tricky. I mean, you know, I barely sit down and watch half of football without fidgeting and getting up to make a cup of tea and having, you know, something, a smoke or whatever. So doing it for a game is even harder. But yeah, the 3 games I had, I think it was like 11 minutes, 12 minutes, and 14 minutes. And I was like, wow, if the game's end like this, that's going to be awesome. They're going to be so much fun. And I guess maybe the top end and the pros that we end up having in the game, the games might be a little longer. But I'm intrigued to see where it goes. A bit like TB said, really. I'm liking the elements within the game a lot.
Is is the game length good for production in a game like that?
I mean, in TV world, if they can fit it into 12 minutes, then it's perfect.
I see.
That's how TV works.
True,
it works in 12-minute segments.
Oh, that's a good point.
But beyond that, the point is that we don't work in TV land anymore, and I think pretty much now if TV wants to show gaming, well, good fucking luck to you. Come to us, we'll tell you how to do it, because we know how to do it and you don't.
Right.
So you'll have to bend round us now. We're not going back to the CGS where you can bend it all round your wheel and change how many rounds we play and the length of the time. No, you can just do it the way we goddamn want you to do it now. And we can be pretty confident of dictating that. So I don't think that worries too much, but I think it's nice. I think it's a nice. If the games are anything, I've seen one earlier which was 8 minutes, which seemed pretty.
It can happen.
Stupidly far. Yeah, it was rare, but it was like, wow, did that really just finish? I literally got up and I came back and it was done. What the hell? Really? Okay. So if it's 8 minutes to 25 minutes, then I think that's really good for esports. Yeah, and really good for broadcasting as well.
All right, TB,
keeps people interested.
You're gonna say something, TB?
The game length is very dependent on just kind of how good one team is over the other at getting objectives, because while it looks like the game could drag on a lot, the way that they've got the objectives set up kind of puts a clock on the game more so, I feel, than other Dota style games. A couple of maps are an example of that. The Haunted Mines, where the mechanic is that you go to a separate map entirely, which is cool in and of itself, to go and farm skulls. And there's 100 skulls in total, and each team takes a portion of that. The more skulls you get, the more powerful your golem is when it gets spawned. When that golem gets spawned, no team in the universe is going to have enough DPS to take that thing down before it at least does some damage to base structures. And usually it's maybe about 3 golem pushes to palace. And that kind of puts a clock on the game. Similar situation is on the Raven Curse map, although less so. What happens is you collect tributes. Once one team has 3 tributes, a curse is put on the enemy team. All the enemy minions go down to 1 HP, so they're very, very easy to kill. Their forts, I believe their forts don't fire, their towers fire at like half speed or something.
They fire slower. Yep.
Yeah. So again, you're going to do a huge amount of damage every time that happens. Even the same with the pirate map, because the pirates do guaranteed damage to base structures, and there's no way to actually stop that. All of those objectives put a clock on the game, meaning that you can basically predict that a game will end probably between 20 to 25 minutes between 2 fairly evenly matched teams. Stephen, I don't know if you've had a longer game than that, but I think the longest I've had is maybe 28 minutes. And that was a fairly evenly matched one?
I don't think we have. Kind of like you said, the objectives put a time limit on it.
Yeah. The coin one is... The pirate one is really, really interesting because, it kind of... it scales up, right? After you turn 10, you have to turn 12, you have to turn 14, so it's kind of...
Well, I like the pirate one in particular because it puts tokens that you have to carry around as a resource, which can... be killed. It's a very gank heavy map, whereas all the other ones aren't, because the objectives don't actually mean that you need to do that.
Right, Steven, you're gonna say something?
I was gonna say the only exception would be maybe the dragon map could be one where you could find, because the dragon itself isn't particularly as scary as some of the other map mechanics.
It goes down fast. It's pretty hard to pull off too. I can imagine that one being very tough once you get really good players all playing. At a high level.
Sure, depending on who's ahead or not,
Yeah. The one thing I love about the game, just from a game designing standpoint, is that they've really created a facility to have lots of different maps. Right now we have 4 different maps that have 4 different objectives. Like the objectives do accomplish the same thing, which is giving you an advantage on destroying the enemy buildings and bases. But the way you do it is so different, and I can just imagine there being 20 different ways, 20 different objective type of games, and not just being copies, just different landscape basically, and having the same exact thing.
The number of maps makes a difference. If that game didn't have more than 1 map, I would safely say you should be playing fucking Dota or League,
absolutely.
Because it would just kill it,
But it's the one thing I've been amazed by with the other MOBAs is that they survive. Because it's funny, if you come from a background like me for 20 years of playing all these different games, online, and the first thing you notice is, Jesus, the map never changes. Why am I never getting another map to play? This is really weird.
Have you guys
seen
hang on a minute? You played Counter-Strike for a while, right? You know, Dust was pretty good. Lots of people like playing that 24/7.
That's true.
But if I was on the Dust-only server and that was the only map in the game ever, then that's what we're talking about. So it took me a while to kind of adjust to the whole, there's only one map. But it works for League for some reason, and it works for Dota as well. But you're right, I don't think it could work for Heroes. I think
in my opinion, it works because the map's basically a football field, right? And the games play out differently every time because of the it's almost like the heroes of the map variety.
Yeah,
because that map interacts differently with each hero. That's less so because of the lack of items and things like that within heroes, so it does need that map variety in order to actually work out.
There'll be
the
more
ability
characters.
the ability for heroes to perform differently on different maps offers the ability for this to be a really interesting game. One of the biggest complaints that I've had about League for a long time, and talents too. One of the biggest complaints I've had about League for a long time is that Riot pretty much prescribes the meta game at this point. Like, it's never going to change. They release specific champs to specific roles. They tell you how they're played in those roles, and they will nerf the champ to shit out of any other role. Like, if you find that one champ can do okay doing something different, then they'll nerf the ratios, or they'll nerf like the AP scaling, or they'll do some shit like that, which makes everything feel really stale. But in a game like this, where you have different kinds of maps with different objectives, that means that every different heroes can be really viable in some maps, and be not so viable in others. Hopefully it means that Blizzard's not going to be in the habit of releasing a hero and prescribing it to a very specific role, and then instead they just kind of throw heroes out there and relegate it to like the players to figure out. I think that would be really cool.
See, one of the ideal designs for me in a strategy game, real-time strategy, or even an action the kind of MOBA and that sort of thing, is the ability, with the characters, to have any of the talents or any of the abilities, and then you can kind of build your own based on what map it is, and have your
There's a bit of that.
Be that. I know exactly, and that's why I think it's great.
There are some generic talents that apply to a lot of different heroes. Like, you can pick bribe on a lot of heroes at level 1 if you want.
Yep.
It's weird because it's almost like a mixture of what the hell did they call them in League? I can't bloody remember now. The two abilities that you can pick. Is it masteries? Or is it,
you're talking about the
summoner
spells.
Yeah, it's almost like a mixture of that and items, because talents are basically items. That's effectively how it works. And you can actually build a really weird generic utility hero that almost has no talents specific to that hero at all, depending on which hero you grabbed. Or you can go purely into one thing. I played to great success, actually, Elite Thorin Chieftain in a few games, and we had this very specific build where we focused on one ability, and that was his power chord. And it ended up having double duration, doing heal over time to everyone around us. And I basically played this as a fucking support cow.
One button. Support.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much played it as a one-button hero. Tassadar is another great example. I love the fact that a lot of these heroes have 2 ultimates, and that completely changes the role of the hero. You pick Tassadar, you grab the Archon ultimate, and you actually talent that thing, and suddenly it becomes kind of a monstrous sort of short-range, big tanking hero that does a lot of damage. Or you take the wall, and you basically play a kind of pure support. And that works. It works in a variety of different ways, and that applies to a lot of the heroes. Not all of them. I don't think there's that many ways you can play Zeratul effectively, but that most of the heroes do have multiple ways to play it, which actually work out really well. So I'm finding myself liking the talent system a lot, and I love the fact that every time you take a talent, it feels like a big step up in power every time you do it. It's like buying a big item in Dota or League and finally getting it complete. It's not like just buying your starting item. It's buying a fucking huge item that is really going to change the effectiveness of your hero.
What's the most
question
number
for you,
okay,
TB? Sorry to cut you off, Chris. Have you played Strife at all?
Yes, actually, I played quite a bit of it. I had the pre-alpha for that, and I've also been playing it in multiplayer as well recently since they went into closed beta.
Yeah. Well, all right. Okay. I've been in the closed beta as well, and I've been playing it quite a bit. And I was just wondering, since you played both, how would you compare that and Heroes of the Storm?
It's a weird comparison because there's a couple of mechanics that are very similar, like the idea that they took wards out of both games and they decided to put watchtowers in. That's very similar to the way that works. Both games try to make individual CS kind of less important, and both games also try to take away the stigma of being a support hero. But they both kind of did it in different ways, and Heroes did it in a much more extreme way, in that they said, oh, as long as you're in a lane, you're getting experience and there's no gold whatsoever, so you don't have to worry about that. Whereas Strife said, oh, you're in a lane, you can have a bit of that. You can have a cut, and it's optimal to have two players in there. Strife is actually, I think, more of a slight nudging of the existing games, sort of towards a more casual-friendly experience, while still maintaining the majority of...
It makes League of Legends look like speed chess, dude. I mean, like, to say it is
Oh, man,
beyond... No, I'm not
That's
even
crazy.
kidding. Like, it is beyond simple. I was
abilities
astounded.
that are really simple in that game. Like, League lately, and I like to watch some of the League Champion spotlights, and I've noticed, like, oh, here's what the thing does. Here's what the ability does. But then in this situation, it does this, and this, and this, and this, and then if this happens, then this. And in Strife, they're just like, this does damage. This stuns. And this is a jump. And a lot of the characters are like that. And I have a feeling that's going to hurt the game quite badly if they don't shake that up a little bit further in. But it does make it very easy to understand, and it's still a fun game to play, but you're right. League is a lot more complicated than it. And Heroes has less a learning curve, but it's kind of weird because it's a bit more complex in different ways. Like I was saying earlier, that objective focus and the ridiculous amount of map awareness that you have to have, and some of the heroes just being strange, like Abathur in particular. Just the way that they handled they made a hero who never leaves the fucking base. Like
that's
they
not
do.
true.
leave
You haven't
the
played.
base.
You haven't played with lane Abathurs yet, Totalbiscuit.
Lane Abathur? How do you play Lane Abathur?
You sit there and you watch him die over and over and over and over and over again every time he fucking ults while he's in the fucking lane.
My experience with Abathur has been two extremes. Like, fucking
sits in
people
a
just started
bush.
training pick Abathur, and I'm pretty sure it's your fucking fault. It's your fault for doing this shit. They pick Abathur, and they just
Channel.
feed, and they're useless. It's like having only 4.5 players on your team if you've got a bad Abathur. And then there's a god Abathur on the other team. You're like, I can't fucking kill this hero because he's always got the right fucking thing on his head at the right time, doing the Carapace upgrade, and then suddenly double Nova comes out of fucking nowhere and nukes the entire team. Double Hyperion kills your palace while it's halfway across the fucking map. Holy shit, Abathur.
Oh my god. Yes, Abathur.
I predict.
It's,
In a few weeks from now, Destiny won't be complaining about Protoss anymore. This is what he'll be
he's gonna
moaning
be
about.
complaining against Abathur.
Nothing is. I don't think anything is too broken this game.
Wow, really? You just played it for like a few
I'm-
days now, man.
Yeah, he's obviously not been shit on yet. Like, as soon as that happens, like,
I think
Okay, so-
you get shit on by a team, though. It's what Sting was saying earlier. Like, there's no individual player, an individual fucking class that shits on you. You get shit on by the entire team. That actually, to some degree, feels fucking worse. But there's no hero I'd point to in there that's ludicrously overpowered. There might be some tweaking needed. I thought Nova was a bit ridiculous for a while until I figured out you can actually see the stealth. It's possible to see it.
Yeah,
and
that
not
really helps.
So
that
this-
really helps stealth heroes be kind of a little bit more balanced and not be ridiculous.
So I mean, again, kind of
Arrogance
comparing,
pretty good.
comparing this to the other
Yep,
MOBAs,
good.
and again from an event standpoint, production standpoint, one of the things I really enjoy about TI3 and just all the TIs and a lot of the LCS stuff is that there still is that ability for an individual to really turn the tide or really snowball and just dominate, stand out at the end of a game. And from the standpoint of a viewing experience, I really enjoy that. I really enjoy when this superstar can just be elevated and the production just elevates him even higher, and then there's just this amazing experience. I feel like that's not going to be possible with Hero, or am I wrong
Probably
in saying
not.
that?
Definitely
would-
not.
Yeah.
The only way one person is going to be hero killing the enemy team is going to be if your team is already so fucking far ahead that it's not interesting at that point anyway.
Pretty much, yeah. Because you can't get that far ahead, even if you've got a significant level advantage. Probably the biggest time when that happens is when you got an early game advantage and you hit your ultis before they do. And all fucking 5 of you get ultis at the same time because of team level. So if you know that's coming and you're set up, you can absolutely capitalize on that and fuck the enemy team completely. And it's brutal, and they definitely can't fight you at that point. That's the period of the game where it's most imbalanced. You could maybe argue when you hit 20, when you get your storm abilities, maybe, because those are pretty good as well. Like you get your revive, or you get your chain lightning, or you pick up your ulti buff, which is usually very, very powerful. But no, I mean, you're not going to get that star. But a counterpoint to that is it's a team game, right? You know, it's kind of cool that we can glorify the achievements of the team overall instead of just saying, oh, you know, the only this is from a casual perspective, but the only player I can name on Fnatic is Expecte. And I should be able to name, you know, the entire team. I should know about that stuff. But Expecte is kind of elevated above the rest. And I think that's cool. But I suppose there's a possibility that you know, you could swing it the other way.
Yeah, kind of going along with that. I don't like and I touched on this a little bit earlier, but like I don't like how the game kind of makes some decisions for you. For instance, if you're talking about a game of League of Legends or Dota 2, if there's something going on in one of those MOBAs and your mid gets really fed, doesn't mean you're going to win the game. It technically doesn't even really mean you're ahead. Really, it just means that mid is ahead. If mid is winning his lane really hard, it means that mid is ahead. Now it's up to that player strategically to work with the rest of his team to try to transfer that lane dominance to the other lanes, right? That's why like a lot of newbie players in League and probably in Dota 2, they're like, I win my lane, but for some reason I can never win the game. Well, winning your lane doesn't really mean anything. You win the game by killing the enemy nexus or whatever first. And in order to do that, like if you're winning your lane, you've got to go to the other lanes. You've got to try to transfer your lane win into a win for the other lanes, or to use it to capture objectives, etc., etc. In Heroes of the Storm, if you are winning your lane, it's you won. Everybody gets experience. That mechanic or that decision, that part, that aspect of skill, that dimension is gone. Now, if you're winning your lane really hard, no longer is it time to figure out how do we implement that that lead into making it so that we're all kind of ahead now. It's just automatically transferred an EXP across the entire field to your team. And there are little things in that with Hero of the Storm where it's like, that's a decision. That's like part of the game that I would like to have seen happen, like on a player implemented basis. Like, okay, well, like mid is ahead now. I want to see how they transfer that to a lead instead of, okay, mid is ahead now. Everything's equally split amongst the team and now everybody's a little bit ahead. You know, like I feel like that's kind of a big part of the game. But again, it's not fair to compare it straight up to a typical MOBA. But stuff like that is stuff that I missed. That I wish wasn't gone.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. Well, why don't we take a quick break, guys, and then we'll come right back with. We'll talk a little bit about Free to Play, the documentary, and then I think there's like maybe John, we'll let you take one question from maybe the red thread before you take off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll be right back.
Yeah.